Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Juliette and this is the channel where I talk all about my knitting and the various things that I end up working on. Today I'm going to talk about the things that I'm planning to knit for this autumn-winter 2025 season. Now my wish list is always much longer than what I usually end up being able to knit within a given period of time. So this is more of like make it like, you know, a mixture of plans but also inspirations and future wish lists for things that I want to knit in this season and maybe also the next few colder seasons as well. The goal for this season is to knit from stash. So I've got my big bucket of yarns that I've taken from my yarn stash to show the yarn that I'm planning to use for the projects that I'm going to mention today. So let's get right into it. Before I jump into today's video, I just wanted to mention what I'm wearing, which is the PhD vest. Now, if you're considering what to knit for autumn winter that doesn't take too much time and not too much yarn either, then I'm gonna self-promote my pattern unashamedly because I think this is a perfect pattern for transitional weather, but also equally something that I wear all year round. So today it's a bit warm, but it was a slight chill in the morning, so I'm wearing this over just a normal t-shirt. I've also worn this in colder weather with like a long sleeve blouse or a shirt underneath, like a proper button-up shirt underneath, like for the kind of academia look. And then on the coldest days in winter, I've also worn this over a turtleneck, and so that keeps me quite warm as well. So this is the PhD vest pattern by me, and if you want to check it out, I'll leave the Ravelry link in the description below. So the first project that I'm planning to knit this autumn-winter season is actually something that I've already started, and it's the sweater number 23 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. So this is a very classic drop shoulder jumper construction that features quite a long bit of 1x1 rib at the cuffs and also at the bottom of the body. I'm knitting this up in a yarn that I bought as a souvenir when I went to Copenhagen, which is Fjellholt Utspinderi Handverksjern. I think that's how you pronounce it. This is a 100% Danish wool that's milled in Denmark as well. And it's a brand that you can hardly get in the UK, so I was really hoping to find and bring back some of this when I went to Copenhagen in April 2024. I happened to have a conference there. By the way, like if you didn't know, I'm a PhD student, and so as like researchers, we get to go to conferences in different places. I've been lucky enough that one of the destinations was Copenhagen, which is like one of the dream places you can go to if you're a knitter, just from the sheer amount of knitting shops that Copenhagen has. So I bought this in Uldestedt, and I have a whole video which I'll link up here about my like shopping experience in the various yarn shops that are available in Copenhagen. So I suggest you check that out if you're thinking of going to Copenhagen soon and want an itinerary for the shops to visit. And so this is the color navy, which because we're getting good lighting today, you can really tell that it's like a nice, really kind of purple-ish blue. So I'm really loving it so far. It's quite a large gauge as well. So this handverksjern is actually one of the recommended yarns in the pattern by My Favorite Things Knitwear. And so this pattern features a 17 stitches by 23 row gauge in stockinette, and it's knit up with a recommended needle size of 5mm for the body and 4mm for the cuff. So it's knitting up pretty quickly. As you can see, I've already joined in the round at the body. And I've started to knit the sleeves first before continuing with the rest of the body. I'm not too sure about what's happening with this sleeve, but it feels like it's like oddly narrow, so I might need to fix that and do this. And I think I'll talk about this more in my next knitting podcast as well. But yeah, this might need a bit of a modification just to make sure that things aren't too tight around the armhole. So the reason I picked up this jumper was really led by the choice of this yarn. I knew I wanted to get this yarn as a souvenir from Denmark, and I got enough for a sweater quantity without really knowing what I will make with it. But since this was one of the recommended yarns for this pattern, and I've also kind of realized that I didn't really have like a classic drop shoulder jumper in my knitted wardrobe collection. So that's why I've decided to knit this. And I think this is something that Anne-Sophie from Candid Knit also realized, and so it's quite fun that we're both doing this pattern with that same realization that we didn't really have just a classic drop shoulder jumper in our collections. And the drop shoulder is done by doing these rapid increases around the edge of the shoulders here, which is quite My Favorite Things Knitwear design feature, and it leaves this really cute kind of border at the back of your shoulders. The sweater number 23 comes in sizes XS to 4XL, with a finished circumference that ranges from 120 to 168 centimeters. So I think it's meant to have about 30 centimeters of positive ease or so. Now the next pattern that I'm thinking of knitting is actually the Lace Pullover by Ozetta. I've never knitted anything from Ozetta. I know that the Lace Pullover is also Ozetta's very popular pattern, if not the most popular pattern. And so I've also wanted to try my hand at doing a saddle shoulder construction. So I felt that this would be the perfect way of getting into it and also discovering a new knitting designer as well. The Lace Pullover, if you don't already know it, is a saddle shoulder jumper construction with 18 stitches and 28 rows gauge in stockinette stitch, and the recommended needle size is 5mm. So again, should be quite quick to knit up as well. The sizes range from XS to 5XL, and the finished circumference of your jumper will range from 76 centimeters to 145 centimeters. It has a recommended ease of 24 to 27 centimeters, so again quite an oversized fit, which is honestly the look that I like the most. So I think this is gonna be like an ongoing thing with the patterns that I'm going to be talking about today. So it recommends a worsted weight yarn, and I've chosen to knit this with this Knitting for Olive. Sorry, I'm a bit overexposed here. But I've chosen to knit this with the Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino in the color Brown Nougat. This is mostly because I've had this in stash since I impulsively bought this from Yarnworks when they were having like I think they were having some form of end of supply sale where they were gonna get a whole new batch of Knitting for Olive order, and so they were trying to get rid of their old colorways and their old dye lots. They only had 8 of this available. That might be just shy of being too little for this jumper in particular, but 2 things. I think I'm going to knit it quite cropped first of all, and to be honest, the photos look like somewhat on the cropped size as well, but I usually tend to not knit my jumpers as long as they usually recommended in the pattern, so that might help me like save some of the yardage. And then another thing is that I'm not too sure that this color is for me. I think it might be too like orange or yellow undertone for me. I don't know. So I was thinking that if I do need an extra ball, first of all, I'll try to use that extra ball for the extremities, so like the collar and like the cuff of the sleeves or the body ribbing, and that will make sure that if there is a change in color from it being different dye lots, then it's not as obvious because it happens at bits where you have a change in texture anyway, or it can like look like it's on purpose. And even if the color of the extra ball that I get to finish this jumper is different from the rest of the yarns, if I decide that this color is not for me, I could easily over dye the whole thing once I'm done with this jumper to a color that's more suitable, that I prefer, and so therefore dye lot issues won't matter too much. And so yeah, let's see, I'm thinking if I do end up over dyeing this jumper, I might over dye it into like a really dark brown or maybe a burgundy actually, because I've been really into those colors lately for this upcoming autumn winter. I mean, I say I've been really into them. First of all, my nails look like kind of that color, but I feel like I've completely gotten influenced by Instagram, and I feel like the Instagram ads know exactly what to show you to keep you on the app and scrolling. And so yeah, burgundy and brown are like the big thing right now on my Instagram feed, and I've been completely influenced by that, and I'm like craving those colors now. So yeah, that's the plan with this Lace Pullover. So maybe it might feature an over dye, maybe not. I'm very likely to be playing a big game of yarn chicken, but we'll make it work. Now, this is a pattern where if there is only one thing that I end up knitting this season, I hoped it's this one. So ever since finishing my Moby sweater, I've been really into cables. To be fair, like they've always been on my wish list or Ravelry favorites, and I do enjoy seeing pictures of cable jumpers a lot on Instagram. But ever since Cookie the Knitter came out with this Sirena sweater, it's been on my like knitting wish list for the whole time that it's come out. And so I've been saving it for the time that the weather gets colder, and also I was waiting to finish up some other whips. So this is the Sirena Sweater by Cookie the Knitter, and I'm planning to knit this with the Dererum Natura Juliette. I think that's how you pronounce it if you pronounce it the French way, because it's a French brand. And this is the colorway Poivre Blanc, which is a beautiful beige yarn with like a bit of dark brown/black heathering inside. So I think it will give it some lovely texture and dimension as opposed to something that's just like pure beige or pure white. And I think this yarn will work extremely well with like a cabled textured jumper like this, because the yarn itself is very plump and round. So I think it's perfect for these textures. It's 100% merino wool. They explain on the label that the beige base of this merino comes from sheep that is bred in like farmed in France, in actually quite close to where my grandparents are from and where I usually spend my summers as a child. So this feels quite fitting, so near Provence. And the brown/black kind of heathering bit of the merino actually comes from a valley in Portugal called Alentejo. I think that's how you pronounce it. And then it's milled and dyed in France. The fun thing about their Nature Juliette is that it comes with these big 100-gram balls. So you only need about like maybe 4 or 5 to make a jumper if you're someone about my size. And so I bought these in Little Weasel in Paris. So again, quite a nice souvenir to get a French yarn from a French yarn shop in France. So a bit more about the Sirena Sweater itself. The gauge is 16 stitches by 24 rows in moss stitch, and the recommended needle size is 5.5mm needles for the body and 4.5mm for the sleeve. Now, I'm not too sure that this alone, which is like a heavy worsted yarn, will be enough to make that gauge. So I might have to buy like a lace weight yarn to hold with this. And I don't think I want to go with a mohair/a fluffy yarn because I feel like that would slightly take away from the texture. I really want to keep it nice and plump and like extremely visually like clear and defined in terms of the cables. I might try some form of lace weight, alpaca. I believe there are some lace weight merino yarns that you can buy or something like that if I have to hold it with something. I'm not too sure I have enough to size up to make up for the gauge difference. We'll see. I think it will be clear whenever I do the gauge swatch when I cast this on. So the Sirena Sweater by Cookie the Knitter is like a pattern that came out November last year. And I've been really looking at a lot of the Cookie the Knitter patterns because I feel like she has a really good sense of style and design, and I've been really enjoying looking at her Instagram account. So the pattern itself comes in a size range of XS to 4XL with a finished bust circumference ranging from 105 centimeters to 155 centimeters. So it's got a recommended ease of 20 to 25 centimeters. The Sirena Sweater features a drop shoulder construction and those lovely cable patterns. So there's a diamond cables in the middle, and then they're kind of framed by multiple different types of cables on the side, and then the sleeves have like one stretch of cables going down as well. So I've never done this type of diamond cable pattern, so I'm quite excited to try that out. And it feels like this pattern will be quite engaging because it's got loads of different types of cables, and so I feel like it will be quite fun to knit up. If not a bit time consuming, but it's still engaging. Now, staying in the theme of textured cable jumpers, I really also want to make the Sandro Pullover by Flaminia Lauracini, or Knitting with Flem on YouTube and Instagram. This is her debut pattern, and honestly, I've heard so many great things about the quality of this pattern as well, just like the finished object in general. So the Sandro Pullover is this beautiful cable jumper that features an alteration between cable like columns and then just like stockinette columns. And so it looks like one of those classic Polo, Ralph Lauren type jumper, like old vintage jumpers like this. And they are such a staple in the wardrobe, I think, so this is why I really want to knit this up. Also because I initially wanted to knit the sweater number 29, which is like all over cables, and I'll discuss what I'm going to do instead with the yarn that I had saved for that later. But I think the idea of having cables all over compared to this Sandro Pullover, which alternates between cables and stockinette, felt a bit too much, and I feel like this design is a bit less overwhelming in terms of cables, in terms of the visual effect that it has. This pattern by Flaminia, it has a gauge of 22 stitches by 32 rows for 10 centimeters in the cabled pattern, and the recommended needle size is 4mm. It comes with a wide range of sizes from size 1 to 10, and the finished bust circumference ranges from 106.5 to 183 centimeters, so it's a really big range of sizes. It features a European drop shoulder construction, and I'm planning to knit this in Sandnes Pure Gint in this color Jolly Blue, which is number 6046. I mean, look at this color. Isn't it so beautiful? I got the idea from Mathilde from Nestled in Knits to knit this up in pure Gint, because she herself was a test knitter for the Sandro Pullover, and she knit this in Sandnes Garn Pure Gint in the color Poppy. Textures like this, Pure Gint will work really well for that. And I've been really enjoying the Pure Gint that I used for my Moby sweater, so I think it will be no problems in terms of skin tolerance and being able to wear it loads. Again, it features quite a cropped look, which I enjoy, and it's meant to have between 26.5 and 33 centimeters of positive ease. So again, quite like a big oversized look, which I really enjoy. So I mentioned that I had initially planned to knit the sweater number 29 by My Favorite Things Knitwear, but I switched over to the Sandro Pullover because it felt like the cables were a bit less in your face on that pattern. I had already had the yarn for this sweater number 29, which was this Drops Daisy and Drops Kit Silk, both in the color Marzipan. And so when I decided to not knit that sweater number 29 anymore, I was thinking what I could make. And the thing that I've noticed in my knitted wardrobe is that I really lack cardigans. I've only realistically got one cardigan, which is the fennel seed jacket, so it's not even a cardigan per se, and I feel like I could really use one more. And if I'm adding a cardigan to my collection, I feel like adding a neutral one in this kind of beige marzipan color would be perfect. And so I've been really into the cardigan number 9 lately, which I know like a lot of people knit up as well, but I think for good reason. And I'm also planning to do a steeking job so that I avoid having to knit flat in stockinette. This is the one thing that's been putting me off from knitting cardigans in this past, is the fact that you have to knit stockinette flat for so long, for the whole body essentially, and I really don't enjoy doing this. Says the person who knit 2 cardigans for her 2 best friends. So anyway, I feel like I deserve a cardigan, but I don't deserve the pain of stockinette flat anymore. So I saw this knitter on Instagram. I believe her name is Ariane Knits. I'll make sure to put the Instagram handle. And she did the cardigan number 9 and steeked it. So she did it in the round from the moment where you join the front and back onwards. She still did the like front shoulder panels separately. And then as soon as the front and back join in the underarm, I think she started joining the front with some like steeking stitch allowances as well, so she can knit the rest of the body in the round. So that's what I'm planning to do to avoid having to knit stockinette flat for too long. So the cardigan number 9 by My Favorite Things, as I said, is quite a popular pattern. It's got a 16 stitch gauge in stockinette, and the recommended needle size is again 5mm. It seems like this season I've picked up quite a lot of patterns that feature 5mm needles, so I'm hoping that I get quite a few of these patterns knitted up because it will take a bit less time than my usual needle size, which is like 4.5mm needles. So the size range goes from XS to 4XL with a finished bust circumference of 104 centimeters to 153 centimeters, and it has an oversized fit, but that has a positive ease of approximately 20 to 25 centimeters. I've heard a lot of people mention that while they're knitting this up, they felt like it looked huge until they put the collar and the button band, which ties the whole thing together. So I'll be making a mental note of that as well. So because this is like a kind of worsted or heavy worsted / iron weight gauge, and Drops Daisy is a DK weight and Kit Silk is a lace weight, I feel like these two together will most likely make the 16 stitch gauge that I'm supposed to have for this pattern. So yeah, very excited to have a very neutral basic in my wardrobe and to have a cardigan that I can throw on whenever I need to. Equally, I was thinking that if this cardigan is a success, I would absolutely want to have it in like different colors. I'm also thinking yet again of like a really dark brown, and I was thinking that actually trying out some different yarns for a second one would be quite fun as well. So I think Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool is something that I haven't used yet, and I think it will lend itself really well for this cardigan number 9 if you're looking for an alternative that didn't feature mohair or having to hold 2 yarns together. And finally, another pattern that features yarn that I brought back from Copenhagen a year ago is the balloon sweater by Petite Knit. Yes, there is only one Petite Knit jumper. There is only one Petite Knit pattern in this autumn winter plans roundup for me. I am quite pleased with that, and I'm quite proud of myself for trying to venture out from Petite Knit patterns. Not that there's anything wrong with Petite Knit patterns, but I feel like I ought to try out different designers a bit more. So the balloon sweater is actually quite an old pattern by Petite Knit. It came out in 2018, but I feel like the look of it is still very timeless and classic. My mom has like a very similar jumper to this balloon sweater that features like these batwing type of sleeves, and I really enjoy borrowing that from her. So I feel like the inspo comes from that as well. So the balloon sweater features these really gorgeous balloon sleeves, which you knit up by doing some really rapid increases, I believe. And it also has like a drop shoulder construction. And so overall, like a very classic looking jumper with something a little bit more interesting thanks to those sleeves. It has a 21 stitch gauge with recommended needle size of 4mm needles. So this is like my smallest gauge project, I think, in terms of garments for this season that I'm planning. The sizes range from XS to 3XL. I think the size range isn't as good because this is one of her earlier patterns, and I'm hoping that she'll one day revisit these older patterns to make sure that the size range is a bit more inclusive. So the finished circumference ranges from 99 centimeters to 143 centimeters, and it has a recommended ease of 15 centimeters. The pattern recommends holding like a lace weight yarn with a fingering weight yarn like this. I'm planning to make this with knitting for olive merino held with knitting for olive soft silk mohair. You might be thinking this might be a very basic yarn combination, and you'd be right, but I've actually never used knitting for olive soft silk mohair, even though I've been garment knitting for about 2.5-3 years now. I've worked with the knitting for olive merino quite a bit, but not these two held together. And can we just talk about the color of this yarn? When I went to Copenhagen, I knew I wanted to go to the Knitting for Olive flagship store in Frederiksberg. I think that's the name of the neighborhood. And I was thinking to myself, okay, I'm not going to overdo it because I was planning to get different yarns as well. So I decided that I was going to get one sweater quantity of this yarn combination from the flagship store. I was thinking maybe I should pick like a neutral color, or maybe I should pick something that I'm likely to wear a lot. But I was like, actually, no. I'm going to pick a yarn color that brings me joy. And I think also this is a color that will suit me quite well. And I'm really into my greens, so this petroleum green color really called to me. And I think it's so gorgeous and so appropriate for the season as well. So I'm really excited to knit this up. And I think it's going to look gorgeous with this balloon sweater design. But equally, I feel like if I decide that this balloon sleeve look is a bit too much, I could easily change the sleeves to be a normal sleeve and then have this be a normal, like a regular old drop shoulder jumper in this colorway, which will still be beautiful. This is a yarn that I'm really looking forward to work with. I know that this is like kind of, it's considered one of the best yarn combinations in terms of knitting, and yeah, I'm excited to see how this soft silk mohair holds up compared to my current favorite mohair, which is Vulcana Tilia. Now, this was all of the garments that I'm hoping to knit for myself for this cold weather season. There are a couple other things that I'm hoping to knit. First of all, I have like a few Christmas gift knits which I need to knit for some family members. I won't include these in this video, but I'll make sure to do like a Christmas gift knit, probably a vlog type of thing when we come closer to the festive season. But otherwise, I also was hoping to knit, first of all, a red cashmere scarf using this yarn. This is the recycled green cashmere by Save the Yarn, which is a yarn company based in Basel in Switzerland. And I was actually there in person to be able to buy this, and it was discounted, so this came up to 11 Swiss francs per ball of 25 grams, and it has basically almost the same kind of yarn quantity and meters as Cardiff Cashmere Classic. So I feel like this was a really good substitute for that because it was quite a bit cheaper. It's basically like a third off from Cardiff Cashmere Classic, and it's also this really gorgeous, like perfect red color. I've already knitted the penny gloves using this. The goal with this yarn was always to knit a set of gloves, scarf, and hat. And so I've done the gloves. Now I really want to make the scarf because I mentioned this in like a previous video, but I feel like a lot of my outerwear in winter, slash my outerwear in any season, is beige or black. So I feel like having a pop of red, which I know was a very like last year trend, but still I think red is timeless regardless. So I think having a pop of red by having like a red scarf or red hat will be really beautiful. Don't know how much of this I'm gonna get done this season. It might be one of those that I just bring to knit night because they will be, I'm planning to basically make like a tube of stockinette and keep it extremely simple, and therefore it will be quite mindless to knit. So it will be all stockinette in the round as well, so only knitting. So this might be like a really good project whenever I'm going to knit night and I'm feeling quite chatty during knit night. So usually like a uncomplicated project is the way to go. And then another project which I've been keeping for this cold season, but I'm really not sure how much of it I'm gonna get done, is the Sweet Shop blanket by Lower Penrose. So I I have this enormous bag here, which is all the yarn from the Camel's Yarns Advent Calendar from 2024, which the theme was beach combings. So it's really, really beautiful. And I even have the base kind of color in this merino sock from Yarnsmith, which is the Wool Warehouse brand, that I've got ready and I've already ordered, so I can make all the squares, half of the square in the advent color and then the base kind of background color in this merino yarn. When I bought this, I initially wanted to pick something that was like a true neutral gray, but I feel like it looks really ice blue in reality. So that was a bit of a disappointment when I received this order, but I still feel like it looks good with the rest of my Advent yarn color palette. So I think like I've decided to keep this and I'll make this blanket eventually. I feel like having to knit a blanket is like not really high on the priority of things I want to knit. I really would rather knit a few jumpers before I dive into knitting a blanket. But equally, I feel like this blanket will look really nice in my living room. I feel like it would look really cute with the yarn bunting above our couch. I think it will match that quite well. So that was always the plan with this advent calendar, and I'm including it in this video, but I'm not sure how much of it I'm gonna get done in this cold season. In terms of like the cabled jumpers, there were a few others that I was considering but I didn't end up going for, which was the Dagmar jacket by Petite Knit, a very, very popular pattern that came out last year, as well as the Billy Pullover by Sarah Nordland. But I think I'll keep these patterns for another season because I don't think I can realistically do this many jumpers this season. But these are in the back of my mind, and these are some alternatives that you might like. My inspo, if you will, for the Billy Pullover specifically was to do like a really dark burgundy or Bordeaux color. For the Dagmar jacket, I would have kept it quite simple in like an oatmeal color. So I hope that you enjoyed seeing the things that I was planning to knit for this autumn-winter season. As I said, very unlikely that I'll get all of these done, but this is both a planning and like an inspiration type of thing. As I said, I have the yarn for almost all of these projects, so there's nothing stopping me from knitting these in the spring weather as well. There's a likelihood that some of these winter projects end up having to shift over to spring projects, but I don't mind that at all because I really don't mind knitting jumpers all year round. When summer hits and there are heat waves, that's the only time where I'm really like, I'm gonna stop knitting on jumpers and I'm gonna start knitting on summer projects instead. I feel like this was a little bit all over the place, but I hope you enjoyed looking at what I'm planning to knit anyway, and I hope that you got some inspiration out of these for yarn choice and pattern choice. And let me know in the comment section if you're planning to also knit any of these patterns as well. It would be nice to know that other people are doing the same patterns alongside you, and I also want to know what yarn you're choosing for that because I'm always curious about these sorts of things as well. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!